Great news out of the Valley of the Sun. Ian Rappaport reported first. Rodney Hudson, center for the Arizona Cardinals, will be back for the 2022 NFL season. What does it mean? What's the future look like? Double dipping here on a Monday. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Here we go.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Two times in one day. Guess you can say this is getting pretty serious. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Little impromptu live session here on the heels of the news that Rodney Hudson, number one in your hearts, will be back for the 2022 season for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, a lot has happened since the end of the 2021 season, okay? There's been dead periods. There's been questionable periods. There's been head-scratching periods, and there's been just this onslaught of offensive additions for the Arizona Cardinals for the 2022 season. And one of the last things on our minds, going through the beginning of free agency, going through the draft, and situations like that was, damn, Rodney Hudson might not return. When that got legs after he was absent unexcusedly from mandatory minicamp earlier this offseason, was like, OS, what now? And I've proclaimed my vitriol for Steve Keim for not having a backup plan. Like, if you knew that Rodney Hudson, that there was a chance that he may not come back this year, and you did nothing to address the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line through the draft, through the first couple rounds, what are we doing here? And Twitter's hysterical. Like, the whole jumping to conclusions thing, that's what sports media is. It's taking evidence that you see in front of you, making your opinion on it, and then making a definition fuse between that opinion and information at hand. And I don't think that Steve Keim knew that Rodney Hudson was coming back. I think Steve Keim and Michael Bidwell should both buy their respective lottery tickets for themselves or buy it for each other as little gifty for each other, because the 2022 season is now in some capacity saved. Because if Rodney Hudson didn't play in 2022, the Cardinals not only didn't have a contingency plan for this year, but they didn't have a plan for the future either with the roster as currently constructed. So now it seems like J.C. Treader will stay a free agent, and the interior of the offensive line will now have their saving grace of Rodney Hudson hiking the ball to Kyler Murray. I see Rodney Hudson as a player as having a 3 or 4 game swing with him on the field or off it. I tweeted out the stats earlier today. They were 2-3 without him last year. Kyler Murray was sacked 10 times, and in the 3 losses, they averaged 16.3 points per game. In the 2 wins, one was against Houston, and the other was on the road against Cleveland. Cliff Kingsbury wasn't coaching that game. But collectively, between those 2 games, the defense turned the ball over 4 times, and they had 6 sacks of the opposing quarterback with Baker Mayfield and Davis Mills. 3 losses without Rodney Hudson, 16 points per game, 10 sacks. Kyler Murray running around like a crazy person. How substantive Rodney Hudson to this roster is one of the most understated and undervalued entities of the Arizona Cardinals as an organization. I had Mike Golick Jr. on, Thick Six himself, 6 weeks ago or so, and he was glowing talking about Rodney Hudson. Because Rodney Hudson, to like just an average sports fan or football fan, there's definitely nothing wrong with being an average sports fan whatsoever. But he's not a household name. But ask people in Oakland and Vegas how important Rodney Hudson was. Ask Derek Carr how important Rodney Hudson was. And ask Kyler Murray how important Rodney Hudson was last year. Because we saw the Max Garcia experiment. Didn't work out so well. Having some Hikesy problems. And now with Rodney Hudson back in the mix, the foundation for the Cardinals has strengthened and the floor has risen. If Rodney Hudson was not a part of the organization in 2022, the interior of the offensive line would have taken a big step back. Even though Justin Pugh has played some center in his career, whether it be high school, college, or the pros, you cannot replace a Rodney Hudson. You can't do it. Unless you draft one at 23 like Tyler Linderbaum would have been. But now, at least for 17 weeks, the Cardinals situation at center is solved. I don't know if this is going to spark Steve Keim to sign a couple offensive linemen before the start of the regular season. I don't know. But what we do know right now is, at least from the evidence given, because the jumping to conclusions thing is hysterical, but that's what sports media is. Seeing evidence, making your opinion on it, and fusing together an argument because of it. If something were to happen to Rodney Hudson, say he were to get COVID again, or say he were to get injured, the contingency plan for the Arizona Cardinals at the center position is null. So maybe they should still go out and sign J.C. Tretter. Maybe they should still go out and sign a guard or two to complement the left and right side of Rodney Hudson. This hopefully acts as somewhat of a shock to Steve Keim's system to remind him that the NFL roster situation is fragile. Regardless of how deep your roster is at certain spots, it is so fragile because the next play could mean you're down a player. And the roster is currently constructed right now is fantastic with Rodney Hudson back, but there is no safety net. There isn't. So maybe this will act as a catalyst for Steve Keim to think differently about how he constructs a roster. You'd hope. What we saw with, and I know this is different, but what we saw with Hassan Reddick 2 years ago was Chandler Jones goes down against the Jets. Hassan Reddick just comes in, double-digit sacks, goes to Carolina, does the same thing, and now we got Cheese to go play for Philly. It took them 4 years to understand where to play Hassan Reddick. And that's the Isaiah Simmons journey for him. Can they figure out that Isaiah Simmons need to play one position instead of 38 in an effort to maximize his talent so you can pick up his fifth-year option, so you can keep him an Arizona Cardinal afterwards and see Hassan Reddick as a cautionary tale. Maybe you see this offseason now with the chance of Rodney Hudson not returning as a cautionary tale to have some more damn depth on the offensive line and not rely on the top-heavy positions to just magically coast you through, and they're never going to get injured and everything is going to be fine because you have this one player. Maybe this will be the pivot point for Steve Keim to understand that top-heavy ain't the way to win. It's not. And let me just, can we just, okay, so let's just take a second here. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Yeah, Michael says, hell yes, lots of doubts on the Cardinals lately. I think this changes tunes a bit. I agree. Depth is still an issue. I agree. I like to see them go after Sue, him and Watt with Golden, Simmons and Allen with Buddha Scary. I mean, I agree. Listen, depth is still an issue, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But Rodney Hudson's importance. Rodney Hudson is the second most important Arizona Cardinal. I truly believe that because you got to protect Kyler Murray. And there are some things that Kyler Murray has that works to his benefit and also aren't the most, positive things. I mean, he is a little bit more compact than traditional quarterbacks. That's the truth. Okay. Darren Sproles was 5'4", 180, and played football. He took a lot more hits than Kyler did. He did tear his ACL, I believe, in New Orleans. Darren Sproles just changed how running backs and X factors look in the NFL. Okay, so it can be done. But Kyler Murray's been hobbled the last 2 seasons. I will say that last year, if the Cardinals didn't have the record that they did, he probably would have missed 1 game and not 3. But because Colt McCoy won in San Francisco, it's like, you know what? Let's let him sit. Carolina at home, even though they got lambasted by Carolina at home. Kyler probably would have played more if the Cardinals didn't have such a great record when he got injured. With Rodney Hudson now as the anchor of the offensive line, as the spine of the offensive line back, this changes everything. This changes absolutely everything. It changes how you talk about the offense. It changes how you talk about Kyler Murray's progression as a quarterback. It talks about it changes the conversation about how Cliff Kingsbury is going to utilize players downfield. Like Kyler Murray having a second and a half and having upwards of 3 seconds or 3.5 seconds to throw the ball, it's a paramount difference. It's night and day. Because Hollywood Brown needs a couple seconds to get down the field. You know? Zach Ertz may take a couple seconds to get some space in the middle of the field. Rondale Moore, same thing. For plays to actually mature and for Kyler Murray to be able to go through his progressions, you need a little more time. You need some more depth, some more push up front. If Kyler Murray is going to learn how to step up in the pocket better, Rodney Hudson's being there is paramount. It's required almost. And I don't take back the journey of this with Rodney Hudson. I stick by all of it. I think that Steve Keim got incredibly lucky. I don't think Steve Keim knew what Rodney Hudson was going to do. I think Steve Keim got incredibly lucky. And so did the Arizona Cardinals as an organization. So did Kyler Murray. And all in all, this news is probably better news than if Kyler Murray would have got the contract extension today. Yeah. This news is better news than hearing that Kyler Murray would have got the contract extension today. Because this gives the Arizona Cardinals a strengthened foundation to make a push to replicate last season. Not the end, but the win total. Kansas City at home, Vegas on the road, Rams at home. Chris Jones, Chandler Jones, Aaron Donald. Bingo, bango, bongo. Chris Jones, Chandler Jones, and Max Crosby, Aaron Donald. 1, 2, 3. This is going to give the Cardinals the same chance they had last year, which was a good chance to protect Kyler Murray from 3 of the best to ever do it. And that's where we are on July 18th. This is a massive deal that Rodney Hudson decided to come back. And it cannot be understated. Alex Clancy, follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Double dip, man. I'm feeling so much better. Thanks for hanging with me. I was doing 3 days a week for the last month. Came down with something fierce Thursday of last week. Slept about 40 hours, 50 hours over the last 4 days. Feel rejuvenated, ready to take training camp, preseason, and the regular season on full head. Remember, every halftime of every regular season game, I will be doing a halftime show right here. Turn the notifications on YouTube. You'll know whenever my ugly mug comes on, be able to watch. You can check us out, Locked On Cardinals, free and available wherever you get your platforms, wherever you get your podcast, if you're more of the listener type. Once again, Rodney Hudson is back for the 2022 season. He'll be making his cheese. The future is still in doubt for what the Cardinals are going to do at the center position. But as of now, 2:15 Pacific time, Rodney Hudson returning to the Arizona Cardinals is the best possible news the organization, the fan base, etc. could have heard. And feels pretty damn good. Alex Clancy